Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another post-game show here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel here. I'm joined in by Jim Parsons and Mariah Stark. Calgary Flames, Edmonton Oilers series here. It's another great game. I mean, lots of scoring on one side, not so much on the other. Ended up 4-1. Mike Smith had almost a shutout, allowed the last goal by Shillington there. But the Oilers were pretty dominant throughout this game, led by, of course, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. Draisaitl had 4 assists. McDavid had 3. And then Evander Kane had the natural hat trick in the second period. So lots of stuff to talk about. We'll touch on a few other things. But, Jim, we'll start with you. What do you think about this game? The Oilers seem to be back to their scoring ways, and this time they didn't allow a lot.
Yeah, this was a much more complete game by the Edmonton Oilers. They had played a couple games like this against the LA Kings, and it was the team that everybody was sort of waiting to show up. Well, this is the first time that it's really showed up in Calgary. They started hot, which is what I think what you said the key to the game was last time we did this show, to make sure, and I had sort of said they got to make sure that they use the emotion of the crowd, not let it overwhelm them. And they really started well. I think they had 20 shots in the first period, like 27. And then they ended up out shooting again the Flames in the second. The third wasn't so great, but they did most of their work in the first half of the hockey game, and that was enough to kind of let them sort of go on cruise control, which they may have not wanted to do. But still a very, very good game, very well-rounded game. Everybody played really well, from the forwards to the defense to Mike Smith played excellent hockey. So this was a very complete game and a good sign for the Oilers, because if they can do this again in a couple days, then they're in really good shape in this series.
Yeah, they've looked good in these last 2 games, which, I mean, and like you said, they got off to a great start, and couldn't get anything by Markstrom in the first period, but Markstrom looked like he was going to be going to be hard to beat, allow, what was it, close to 20 shots in the first period, and he stopped them all. But then the second period came, and Evander Kane. So we'll talk about him in a sec. But Mariah, on the Calgary side, I mean, they all of a sudden now they can't seem to score, and their top line is kind of gone. They disappeared in this game. What do you think about Calgary's play? I mean, their defensive game, which Daryl Sutter predicates his whole team on, wasn't really there in this game.
No, the first period they looked pretty good. Markstrom, actually, I was like, okay, he's starting to look like he did before. And I thought maybe the last game was a fluke. He looked really good. And then, like you said, that second period, Kane and McDavid just I don't want to be rude, because it's like, obviously there is no way I could ever stop that pairing myself. But it's like the defense was just so wowed by the talent those guys had that it was just, they made them look like cones, not to be mean. But I mean, it was like, and Markstrom, of course, you're 50% chance of stopping that. I mean, 50%, but you get what I'm saying there. Yeah. And I mean, he didn't stand a chance. They just went right in, and it's like, okay, I get. And I mean, the third period towards the end, after everything with Mike Smith happened, they seemed to find their actual game, but it was way too late. If the game had started like that, I think they would have done better, because they seem to have finally found their edge. They got a goal in there. It just was too late.
Well, I half thought it was going to be a 2-1 game in this one. Like, from that first period, I thought, okay, we're going to have our first tight 1-1, whatever type game. But then the second period came, and Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Evander Kane took over. Jim, what did you think about Evander Kane's game? I mean, it seems like he had the hat trick in the first round as well in game 3. So game 3 comes around again and he gets another hat trick. We always know his skill on the ice is unquestioned. I mean, he's one of the best goal scorers when he's on his game. What did you think about Evander Kane's game in this one?
He was really good. Before I answer that, though, I want to say, Mariah, don't worry about being rude about the players. Who's going to stop that? Like, honestly, and 50-50 is generous, because those were 3 goals that he had no chance on at all. Those were not his fault. What are you going to do when those 2 are coming in 2-on-1 on you? But Evander Kane has the ability to know exactly where to go when he's playing with Connor McDavid. That's the deal. And that's not the easiest thing in the world to do. You've seen stars like Sidney Crosby have trouble sometimes finding their chemistry partner, right? He's got Jake Ensel now, but for a while, McDavid didn't really have anybody, and they needed that fit. And Evander Kane has figured out a way since being elevated to that line, and Woodcroft switched things up just to know where to go. So if you need it, and I was really surprised. I think in the game one, I said, I don't think that we're going to, or the pre-series that we did with Colton, I said, I don't think Evander Kane, Draisaitl, and McDavid will probably play on the same line. And they ended up that this is really working out for Edmonton. So but Kane's really good. I mean, he scored 3 goals in 6 minutes. And Calgary just gave up a lot of opportunities. And when you have those rushes, he knows how to finish. The guy is, a proven 20-goal guy. Now, 20 goals in 40 something games, for the Oilers. And he's got 10 in the playoffs now. I mean, he's been unbelievably good. So, and credit to Zach Hyman too, because Markstrom was really good in the first period, and the power play carryover into the first. I was like, man, if they don't score on this could be a problem, because Markstrom could heat up, and then Hyman scored there. So that really made a difference, and that opened it up for Kane to just sort of do his thing.
Yeah, and I mean, like you talked about the goals that, goaltender's not going to stop. Those passes were ridiculous, and Kane, his finishes were like, most goalies aren't going to stop those from, it doesn't matter if it was Martin Brodeur in there, he's probably not stopping that. So, I mean, Markstrom allowed another 4 goals, but, really, it's not really his fault on a lot of them. And Calgary's got to play a lot better in front of him. Right. I mean, Mariah, let's talk about that. I mean, defense, we talked about a little bit there, but they got to be better. And one guy I want to say who's making a huge difference being not there is Chris Tanev. And like, I've got experience with, watching him in Vancouver so many years. The Canucks defense seemed like they were lost whenever he was out of the lineup. And this is the first time the Calgary's had to deal with him out of the lineup, and they don't look good. I know it's only one guy, but he seems to calm the defense down. And that's what came in Vancouver as well. So what did you think about the defense? I mean, without Tanev, which, I mean, they haven't been without him almost the whole time he's been in Calgary.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not personally very familiar with him, but I was looking up his stats, and I mean, he played, I think it said 82 games this season for the regular season, and he had 158 blocks. That's a lot of block shots, and that helps Markstrom out a ton when the shot's not making it to him to begin with. And I mean, a guy like that, 52 hits, I mean, 20 minutes a game. That's a lot of ice time. So, I mean, it's obviously a big deal for them, clearly, because, I mean, from what I saw, he played in the first round, but I'm not as familiar with what happened to him for the second round, but obviously it's making a difference just watching them play now. And I gotta say, their turnovers were absolutely ridiculous. I think the fourth one was the fourth goal Edmonton had was a turnover on their own power play, was it? I don't remember the exact one, but it was just like, what are you doing making that pass? You don't do that. Just shoot it. Don't even try to pass when these guys are on the ice, because they're gonna pick it off and go the other direction, and your goalie's gonna not have a good time. Yeah.
Well, I mean, Edmonton's so good on the rush. I mean, most of their goals today were on the rush, and you can't let McDavid and Draisaitl do that. Although it's really hard to not allow them to do that. So, I mean, they're all world players. So, I want to talk about that play that Lucic on Mike Smith, and Mike Smith had to go in concussion protocol. He didn't want to, but they forced him to go. He was only out for 5 minutes, but
15. That's the rule. 15 minutes of actual time. How much game time that was, I don't know, but 15 minutes is how long he had to go.
Yeah, it seemed like it was only 5 minutes of game time.
I think with the 10 minutes of figuring out the penalties, most of it, because my husband's like, "Isn't the game supposed to be done?" I'm like, "Well, this happened. So they literally just got back to playing."
Well, they had to take a while for the hat trick too to get all the hats, so that took a bit of time too. But Jim, did you think that was worth a 5-minute major Lucic on that hit, and then Mike Smith going to concussion protocol? Was that necessary?
Well, I'm 50-50 on the major. They clearly thought it was. They looked at the replay, they checked it out, they went upstairs, they did everything they had to do, and then they determined it was a major charging penalty. So I have to go, okay, well, that must have been. But he did try to hold up, right? Like it wasn't like he went in there 100% full steam ahead and tried to cream Mike Smith. And you could even see when Evander Kane scored that third goal and the hats started raining on the ice. I don't know if you saw the replay, but Connor McDavid looks at Evander Kane and says, "Oh, it's coming." And I don't know what he meant by that, but he literally said, "Oh, it's coming." So I don't know if he knew that Calgary was just going to turn the game into a slugfest or a gong show or a car crash or whatever they were thinking about doing, because they were getting creamed. So Lucic probably knew what he was going to do. Yeah. Right. He knows Mike Smith really well because he played with him. He knows that Mike Smith is going to play every single puck that there is to play. So he probably knew he was going to cream Mike Smith. So in that respect, maybe that is a major, right? Because he's got some familiarity with Mike Smith and he knows what's going to happen. So, but I think he held up. So in his defense, I do think that he didn't go in there full steam. The concussion protocol thing, it is what it is. It sucks. And I'm going to suggest that maybe that is why Mike Smith let in that last goal, because he had to sit for 15 minutes. It was kind of cold. He came back in and wasn't necessarily himself, was really deep in the net. Of course, Edmonton was playing like a defensive sort of, let's just get out of this game third period. So that didn't help either. But, Mike Smith, he had to go. He makes sense. But I was really happy for him that he got to come back in and play. And the fans were so behind him. Like, this was such a good game for him. To get to see him come back in and get the win, even if it wasn't a shutout, was really cool.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And Smith had probably, I don't know, his best game of the playoffs so far. So if that's what the Oilers are going to get from this series on, they're going to be in good shape for sure. Mariah, I'll go to you on this. Did that deserve a major, you think, that Lucci's getting a major there? He did go in and, he wanted to hit him. So it's not like he did hold up, but he did want to hit him. So what did you think about that play?
I feel kind of the same as Jim, the 50-50. I will say, I was listening to the announcers because I didn't see the initial hit till they did the replay. And I agree. He could have hurt him, seriously injured him and not cared. That was my thing is, okay, you know what he's doing. Why are you going near him at all? I understand playing the puck, I do, but just, you're already down how many goals? Just stay away, because you know what's going to happen. And do you really want to risk potentially, obviously, injuring their goalie would help you, but you could be suspended. There's all kinds of things that could affect your team as well. Is it really worth that? And then, the concussion protocol, I think it's a good thing, because when watching the replay, he did hit his head on the boards, and I do agree with pulling. I understand why he came back and played. I think maybe letting him skate a lap and then coming back off would just pull him, because is it really worth? I get him coming back in for the mindset, you want to play. I understand that completely, but if this series is going to keep going, you want him at his top, and maybe just let him relax and just make sure everything's good. I know 15 minutes out, okay, they have their rules for a reason, but it was just such a weird thing to happen. And I have to say, I was kind of laughing when they were calling the penalties, and all of a sudden the refs, everyone else in the box, 2 minutes roughing, that was efficient. Never heard it called like that.
Yeah, well, the thing is like I say, Mike Smith didn't want to go out, and of course, because he wants to play. Oh, I feel fine, but like I was saying when it was saying, guys can feel fine and then wake up the next morning, they have vertigo, and then it's there for a reason. That the concussion spotter said no, he has to go out, so it has to go out. So that it is what it is. It's great that he came back and was able to get the win. No shutout, but and actually finish the game. So that's great.
I was just going to say, if that is 4-1 when he goes out, he doesn't come back.
That's right.
Because it's the shutout, right? That's the only reason that Jay Woodcroft let him come back. He wanted him to help get the shutout. But if it's 4-1 at the time he goes out, I think Koskinen finishes that game.
But yeah, most likely, for sure. So let's finish looking towards the next game, which now the Oilers have a 2-1 lead, and to get to 3-1 to go to Calgary would be pretty great. Jim, what do you think they have to do? I mean, this game was pretty good, but anything they need to do better to kind of keep that going for game 4?
I would say don't let the third period of this game, which Calgary gained a little bit of momentum in, be the way that the next game starts. I think they need to have the same start they had today, where they had the first half of the game and they pretty much dominated the first half of the game. They need to have that start again, and they need to know that the third period is a possibility. So if they come out flat and they do what they did in the third, now, like I said, they were playing with a lead and they were just trying to get out of the game. But if they do that to open the game, Calgary could get off to an early lead, and that could be problematic. We know the Oilers can come back, but we've talked time and time again on how they shouldn't have to do that to win a hockey game. So they need to start the way they started today and not let Calgary get in their head that they've gained some momentum from that third period, because they scored a goal. They outplayed them in the last 10 minutes, even with a 5-minute major. They were kind of outplaying the Oilers in the third. So let that not be a changer for you and just start the way you started today.
Yeah, and that was huge with that start, and that's what they needed. So they need to do that again. So that's for sure. Mariah, what do you think, Calgary? I mean, this is 2 games, and they've allowed so many goals, which again, Daryl Sutter's not going to like. What do they need to do? Obviously tighten up, but what do they need to do to kind of win this and get back their momentum, the momentum they did have after game 1?
Well, I'm going to piggyback off of Jim and say that end of the third, they need to keep that going and remember that and play like that. I don't know what exactly it was, if they were fired up or what the deal was, but they need to do that. I would say watch the penalties, but I really don't think that's going to happen in this series for how much hate is going back and forth.
Yeah.
There was one other thing. I mean, they got to shoot more, I think. They're passing too much, trying to look for that perfect pass, and a lot of teams get caught in that. It's like, just shoot. If you keep shooting, especially from distance, you're gonna get something past them. Yeah,
and they only had like 10 or 11 shots. They were outshot quite a bit in the first period. So
it was like 20-9, I think.
20-7.
Yeah, 20-7.
That's just like, what?
So.
And I guess, I mean, I'm guessing they're going to go with Markstrom again, and maybe he can have the luck that Smith did when Smith was pulled in the first and he came back in the second game. He was pulled tonight, so maybe he can have some luck for the next game. I don't know. Well,
Markstrom's traditionally pretty good after he's pulled, from what I remember in Vancouver. So I would bet he'd probably bounce back in the next game. So
it'll be very interesting to see, because they showed that stat about how he only plays poorly against Edmonton. So it's crazy. Like, it's such a weird statistic that he has such good numbers against everybody else, but he has such bad numbers against the Oilers that you have to wonder if coming back in after being pulled will matter. I mean, for Calgary's sake, hopefully it does, right? But if they just got his number for whatever reason, who knows? Like, it'll be very, very interesting to see.
Yeah, because it does feel like a Luongo thing, because Luongo just sucked against Boston. It didn't matter. So, I mean, Markstrom, and I even remember in Vancouver, Markstrom wasn't very good against Edmonton anytime he played. So maybe they'd be okay to put Vladar in. I don't know. I don't think that'll happen.
They'll go back to Markstrom for sure.
Most likely. I don't think they'd do that. Throw Vladar in there, but yeah, we'll see. But next game, we'll see what happens, and if each team can kind of fix whatever they can, and we'll see if Edmonton can go up 3-1. But thanks, Jim and Mariah, for coming on the postgame show, and we'll see you next time. We'll see what result is after that.
Take care, everybody.